Welcome to Session 7 of our MOOC, Building Intercultural and Critical English Pedagogy. Today, we shift our focus from teaching and materials to one of the most powerful, and often overlooked, dimensions of education: assessment. In this session, we will rethink what it means to evaluate learning, and explore how assessment can be reimagined as a space for inclusion, identity, reflection, and transformation. For so long, assessment in English language teaching has been treated as a neutral, technical practice, something mechanical, fixed, and unquestionable. Yet assessment is never neutral. It reflects ideological choices about what counts as knowledge, whose language is legitimate, and which learners are considered successful. By the end of this session, you will recognize the limitations of traditional testing, understand assessment through critical and decolonial perspectives, and be able to design assessment strategies that honor learners' voices, identities, and growth. Let us begin by asking, why must we rethink assessment? Traditional assessments often reward memorization, penalize difference, and privilege conformity. They can reduce learning to right or wrong answers and treat language as a static standard to be imitated. In doing so, they may unintentionally silence students' identities, overlook their strengths, and discourage critical thinking. If our goal is to cultivate empowered, reflective, and interculturally competent learners, then assessment must become more than a gatekeeping mechanism. It must become a tool for growth. One major challenge lies in standardized ELT testing. Such tests often promote native speaker norms and ignore the multilingual realities of students in Indonesia, Asia, and around the world. They measure compliance more than competence, and correctness more than communication. We must ask, whose English are we testing? For whom? And for what purpose? These questions help us see that standardized tests frequently fail to capture what truly matters: meaning, effort, creativity, and development over time. A critical perspective on assessment shifts the focus from judging to understanding. It centers the learner and values process over perfection. It recognizes that multiple knowledge systems, local, indigenous, community-based, are valid ways of knowing. Critical assessment is fair, inclusive, and built on dialogue rather than fear. It acknowledges that students learn differently, express meaning differently, and bring diverse cultural experiences into the classroom. A decolonial lens pushes us further. It asks deeper questions. Who decides what knowledge is worth assessing? Which ways of speaking or communicating are privileged? Are we unintentionally erasing cultural identity through the assessments we design? In a decolonial classroom, assessment should affirm who learners are, not ask them to become someone else. Students should be able to show what they know through modes that honor their language journeys and lived experiences. This shift, from testing to empowerment, is transformational. Assessment becomes a dialogue, a platform for reflection, a moment for students to articulate their understanding and their growth. Empowerment means redistributing power. Students are not passive recipients of grades, but co-constructors of what success looks like. They help define the criteria, reflect on their own learning, and take ownership of their progress. To make this possible, we must embrace inclusive assessment methods. Instead of relying solely on written tests, consider journals, portfolios, interviews, peer feedback, community-based projects, student-led conferences, and multimodal assignments. These formats celebrate diverse intelligences and allow students to communicate in ways that feel natural to them, through storytelling, visuals, performance, or multilingual expression. They create space for all students to succeed. One powerful example is the language biography portfolio. Here, students document their language experiences, childhood memories, family practices, community interactions, or significant learning moments. They may express these through timelines, narratives, artwork, or multimedia. As they explore the relationships between language, power, and identity, assessment becomes a journey of self-discovery. Not only does this method honor learners' histories, but it also reshapes their understanding of themselves as legitimate language users. Of course, equity must guide our assessment practices. Teachers should avoid penalizing learners for having local accents, for translanguaging naturally, or for using English in ways that reflect their community contexts. Rubrics should be clear, flexible, and culturally grounded. Feedback should encourage confidence, not fear. Most importantly, learners should be invited to participate in shaping the criteria by which they are assessed. When assessment becomes collaborative, it becomes empowering. This also means rethinking rubrics. Move away from rigid checklists that reward only one correct way of sounding or writing. Instead, design rubrics that value creativity, authenticity, critical reflection, and effective communication. Remember, language learning is not linear, nor is it mechanical. It is dynamic, human, and deeply connected to identity. Yes, these shifts require courage. They require letting go of old habits and embracing diversity in how students express meaning. They ask us to trust our learners and to trust ourselves. But within this shift lies incredible potential for deeper learning, stronger relationships, and more meaningful engagement. As a teacher-assessor, your role is not simply to grade. You are a co-learner, a partner, and a guide. You create conditions for students to show who they are, what they know, and what they can become. When assessment becomes part of your pedagogy, not separate from it, you redefine what success truly means. Now it's your turn. Choose one assessment you've used in the past and imagine redesigning it through a critical or decolonial lens. How could you involve your students more? How could you center identity, justice, and empowerment in the process? This is your opportunity to rethink evaluation as a practice of care and transformation. As we move into the final module, you will synthesize all the concepts we have explored: criticality, culture, curriculum, assessment, and reflection. Prepare to bring everything together and take your next step as a teacher committed to justice-oriented English education. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing how your ideas evolve.